ഈ ഫെസ്റ്റിവൽ രണ്ടാമത്തെ എഡിഷൻ ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്തത്. അതിൻ്റെ ഐശ്വര്യം ഇവിടെ കാണാനുണ്ട്. ഈ വർഷം അത് കൂടുതൽ നിറപ്പാകിട്ടോടെ കൂടുതൽ വിപുലമായി നടത്താൻ കഴിഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ വരാനും നമ്മളിവിടെ സംസാരിക്കാനും സന്മനസ്സ് കാണിച്ച ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട മന്ത്രി ശ്രീ കെ സി ജോസഫിനെ ഞാൻ ആദ്യമായി സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. വേദിയിൽ പിന്നെയുള്ളത് നമ്മുടെ MLA ശ്രീ വിഷ്ണുനാഥ് തുടങ്ങിയ മറ്റ് പ്രമുഖരാണ്. എല്ലാവരെയും ഈ ഇതിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് ശ്രീ PC വിഷ്ണുനാഥ് തുടങ്ങിയവർക്ക് ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു.
ബഹുമാനായ ഫെസ്റ്റിവൽ ഡയറക്ടർ ശ്രീ TP രാജീവൻ, ആദരണീയനായ സാംസ്കാരിക വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രി ശ്രീ KC ജോസഫ് അവർകൾ, ആലപ്പുഴ ജില്ലാ സഹകരണ ബാങ്കിൻ്റെ പ്രസിഡന്റ് ആദരണീയനായ ശ്രീ നളന്ദ ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണൻ നായർ അവർകൾ, ബഹുമാന്യരായ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ വിവിധ ഭാഷകളിലെ പ്രശസ്തരായ എഴുത്തുകാർ, യൂത്ത് വെൽഫെയർ ബോർഡിലെ പ്രതിനിധികളായി എത്തിയിട്ടുള്ള യുവ സാഹിത്യകാരന്മാർ, മാധ്യമ സുഹൃത്തുക്കൾ, പ്രിയമുള്ളവരെ, സിവെ 2014 ഔപചാരികമായി ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്തത് സാംസ്കാരിക വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രിയായിരുന്ന ശ്രീ KC ജോസഫ് അവർകളാണ്. 2015 സിവയ്ക്കും സാംസ്കാരിക വകുപ്പിൻ്റെയും അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെയും വ്യക്തിപരമായിട്ടുള്ള എല്ലാ പ്രോത്സാഹനവും പിന്തുണയും ലഭിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. സിവെ 2015 വടക്കിഴക്കൻ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളിലെ എഴുത്തിനെയും എഴുത്തുകാരെയും പ്രധാനമായും കേന്ദ്രീകരിച്ച് ആണ് ഒരു തീം എന്ന നിലയിൽ സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ ഇന്ത്യയിലും വിദേശത്തുമായി അറിയപ്പെടുന്ന എഴുത്തുകാർ ഈ 3 ദിവസത്തെ സംഗമത്തിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഇന്നലെ പ്രശസ്തയായ എഴുത്തുകാരി CS ലക്ഷ്മി സിവെ 2015 ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്തു. നല്ല സംവാദങ്ങൾ, അതിനുശേഷം ചൂടുപിടിച്ച ചർച്ചകൾ ഇവിടെ വേദിയിൽ അരങ്ങേറുകയുണ്ടായി. ഞാൻ ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട മന്ത്രിക്ക് വേണ്ടി ചെറുതായി ഇന്നലത്തെ സെഷൻ ഒന്ന് ബ്രീഫ് ചെയ്യുക മാത്രമാണ് ഈ അവസരത്തിൽ ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഇന്നത്തെ സെഷൻ ആരംഭിക്കാൻ പോവുകയാണ്. ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട സാംസ്കാരിക വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രിയുടെ പ്രസംഗത്തിന് ശേഷം അരുന്ധതി സുബ്രഹ്മണ്യം പങ്കെടുക്കുന്ന സെഷൻ ആരംഭിക്കുകയാണ്. നിശബ്ദമായി കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ സാംസ്കാരിക രംഗത്ത് വലിയ വിവാദങ്ങൾക്കൊന്നും ഇടം നൽകാതെ വകുപ്പിന് നേതൃത്വം നൽകുന്ന മന്ത്രിയാണ് ശ്രീ KC ജോസഫ്. വളരെ ശാന്തമായ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ സാംസ്കാരിക മേഖലയിൽ നടത്തുവാൻ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. ചെങ്ങന്നൂരിൻ്റെ MLA എന്ന നിലയിൽ ഈ അവസരത്തിൽ ഒരു നന്ദി അദ്ദേഹത്തോട് എനിക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത്, കഥകളിയുടെ തെക്കൻ ചിട്ട രൂപപ്പെടുത്തിയ ആചാര്യ ഗുരു ചെങ്ങന്നൂരിന് ഒരു സ്മാരകമുണ്ടായിട്ടില്ല. ഗുരു ചെങ്ങന്നൂരിനെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള ഏക സ്മരണ അടൂർ ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണൻ അദ്ദേഹത്തെക്കുറിച്ച് എടുത്ത ഒരു ചെറിയ ഡോക്യുമെൻ്ററി ഫിലിമാണ്. ഞാനൊരു 4 വർഷം മുമ്പ് IFFKയിൽ തിരുവനന്തപുരത്ത് പങ്കെടുക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് വളരെ യാദൃശ്ചികമായി തിയേറ്ററിൽ നിന്ന് മാറി അടുത്ത തിയേറ്ററിലേക്ക് ഇങ്ങനെ പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന അവസരത്തിൽ ആണ് ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു ഫിലിം സ്ക്രീൻ ചെയ്യുന്നു അറിഞ്ഞിട്ട് കയറുമ്പോൾ ഗുരു ചെങ്ങന്നൂരിനെ കുറിച്ച് അടൂർ ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണൻ എടുത്ത വളരെ മനോഹരമായ ഒരു ചെറിയ സിനിമയാണ്. അതുമാത്രമാണ് ആകെയുള്ള ഒരു സ്മാരകം എന്ന ഓർമ്മ. അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ പേരിൽ ഒരു സ്മാരകം സാംസ്കാരിക വകുപ്പ് അനുവദിച്ച് തന്നതിന് ഈ അവസരത്തിൽ പിന്നീട് അദ്ദേഹം ആദ്യമായി ചെങ്ങന്നൂരെത്തുമ്പോൾ ഈ പ്രദേശത്തിൻ്റെ ജനപ്രതിനിധി എന്ന നിലയിൽ അദ്ദേഹത്തോടുള്ള നന്ദി കൂടി അറിയിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ വാക്കുകൾ അവസാനിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. സിവെ 2015 പ്രതിനിധികളെയും ബഹുമാന്യരായ എഴുത്തുകാരെയും അഭിവാദ്യം ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി സാംസ്കാരിക വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രിയെ ആദരപൂർവ്വം ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു.
My dearest colleague, our distinguished member of the Kerala Legislative Assembly, and also a prominent leader of the youth movement in Kerala, Shri P.C. Vishwanath, Festival Director Shri T.P. Rajivan, District Cooperative Bank President Shri Nalanda Gopalakrishnan, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to be here to address this august audience of this South Indian Writers Enclave, which started yesterday. Of course, last year also we started this program. Interaction between various writers, cultural activists throughout India will definitely contribute to the national integration and also will help to share the experience of various writers. Today you are having discussions in different sessions highlighting the cultural symbiosis and also the various literary activities from different languages. This year, this Pamba is highlighting the Northeast Writers Ensemble. The northeastern states of Kerala, the 7 states, are the integral part of India and sharing their experiences. Of course, when the national mainstream comes, the northeastern states are very often relegated to the second position amidst the various prominent Indian languages. But this time Pamba is highlighting the contribution of the northeastern writers, and this helped to understand the northeastern cultural background. Kerala State Youth Welfare Board is co-sponsoring this historic movement camp, and I hope this will lead to the strengthening the national integration of our country. Kerala Samsthana Youth Welfare Board മുൻകൈയെടുത്തുകൊണ്ട് നടത്തുന്ന ഈ സാഹിത്യകാരന്മാരുടെ സംഗമം കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷം തുടക്കം കുറിച്ചതാണ്. ഇത് വളരെയേറെ സജീവമായി മുമ്പോട്ട് പോകുന്നതിൽ ഗവൺമെന്റിന് വളരെയേറെ സന്തോഷവും ചാരിതാർത്ഥ്യവുമുണ്ട്. ശ്രീ പി.സി. വിശ്വനാഥ് നിയമസഭയിലെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ എല്ലാം ഏറ്റവും പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട സഹോദരനാണ്. ചെങ്ങന്നൂരിൻ്റെ MLA ആണ്. സാംസ്കാരിക സാഹിത്യ രംഗങ്ങളിൽ പ്രത്യേകമായ താല്പര്യം കാണിക്കുന്ന MLA-മാരുടെ മുൻപന്തിയിലാണ് എന്നും ശ്രീ പി.സി. വിശ്വനാഥ്. ഇതൊരു നവീനമായ ആശയമാണ്. കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ സാംസ്കാരിക തനിമയുടെ ഒരു വലിയ വേദിയായ പമ്പയുടെ തീരത്ത് ഇന്ത്യയിലെ വ്യത്യസ്തമായ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന്, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് വടക്ക് കിഴക്കൻ മേഖലയിൽ നിന്ന് സാഹിത്യകാരന്മാരെ പങ്കെടുപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് അവരുടെ അനുഭവങ്ങൾ പങ്കുവെക്കാനും നമ്മുടെ സംസ്കൃതി വിലയിരുത്താനും കഴിയുന്ന ഈ അവസരം തീർച്ചയായും മുമ്പോട്ടുള്ള വർഷങ്ങളിലും തുടർന്ന് വിജയകരമായി മുമ്പോട്ട് പോകാൻ എല്ലാവിധ സഹായങ്ങളും തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും നമുക്ക് നൽകേണ്ടതായിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഭാരതത്തിൻ്റെ മഹത്തായ സാംസ്കാരിക പൈതൃകം അത് ഓരോ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളുടെയും ഭാഷ, ജീവിത രീതി, അവരുടെ കടന്നു വന്ന സാംസ്കാരിക തനിമ, ഇതെല്ലാം സംയോജിച്ചാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ സാംസ്കാരിക പൈതൃകം ഉയർത്തിക്കാട്ടുന്നത്. നമ്മളെപ്പോഴും നാനാത്വത്തിൽ ഏകത്വം എന്ന് ചൂണ്ടിക്കാണിക്കുന്ന പോലെ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ ഓരോ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങൾക്കും സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങൾക്കുള്ളിൽ ഓരോ പ്രദേശങ്ങൾക്കും അവരുടേതായ സാംസ്കാരികമായ ചില കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചൂണ്ടിക്കാണിക്കാനുണ്ട്. വ്യത്യസ്തമായ ജീവിത രീതികൾ, വ്യത്യസ്തമായ ആചാരക്രമങ്ങൾ, വ്യത്യസ്തമായ ഭാഷകൾ, അതിൻ്റെ എല്ലാം അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ ഇന്ത്യയുടെ വ്യത്യസ്തമായ ഭാഷകൾ സമ്മേളിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മുടെ നാടിൻ്റെ ഐക്യം ശക്തിപ്പെടുത്തുന്നത് തീർച്ചയായും വളരെയേറെ ശ്രദ്ധേയമായ ഒരു കാര്യമാണ്. കേരളത്തെ സംബന്ധിച്ചിടത്തോളം കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ സാംസ്കാരികമായ പൈതൃകം അത് ലോകത്തിൻ്റെ മുമ്പിൽ തന്നെ പ്രത്യേകമായി കേരളം ഉയർത്തിക്കാട്ടുന്ന വലിയ സംരംഭങ്ങളാണ്. പ്രധാനമായും നമ്മുടെ പരമ്പരാഗതമായ കലാരൂപങ്ങളെല്ലാം അതിൻ്റെല്ലാം ഉറവിടം നമ്മുടെ ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങളും നമ്മുടെ ആചാരക്രമങ്ങളുമാണ്. കഥകളിയാണെങ്കിലും മോഹിനിയാട്ടമാണെങ്കിലും കൂടിയാട്ടമാണെങ്കിലും ഇതെല്ലാം പിറന്നു വീണതും വളർന്ന് വികസിച്ച് മുമ്പോട്ട് പോയതുമെല്ലാം ക്ഷേത്രങ്ങളുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് ആചാരക്രമങ്ങളുടെ ഭാഗമായിട്ടാണ്. പക്ഷെ ഇന്ന് അത്തരത്തിലുള്ള സാംസ്കാരികമായ നമ്മുടെ ഓരോ സാംസ്കാരികമായ മുന്നേറ്റങ്ങളും കേരളീയ സമൂഹത്തിൻ്റെ മുഖ്യധാരയിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുവരാനും കേരളത്തിൻ്റെതായ സാംസ്കാരിക പൈതൃകത്തിൻ്റെ മേന്മയായി ഉയർത്തിക്കാട്ടാനും സാധിക്കുന്ന ഏറ്റവും സന്തോഷമുള്ള കാര്യമാണ്. നമുക്കറിയാം, കഥകളി ഇന്ന് ലോകത്തിൻ്റെ മുമ്പിൽ കേരള തനിമയാണ് കഥകളി വിളിച്ചുയർത്തുന്നത്. മഹാകവി വള്ളത്തോൾ സ്ഥാപിച്ച കേരള കലാമണ്ഡലം ഇന്നൊരു ഡീംഡ് യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയാണ്. ഇന്ന് ശാന്തിനികേതൻ പോലെ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ഏത് ദേശീയമായ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളും പോലെ കഥകളിയും മോഹിനിയാട്ടവും കൂടിയാട്ടവും പഠിപ്പിക്കാനും അതിൻ്റെ ആശയ സംവേദനത്തിനും കേരള കലാമണ്ഡലം ഏറ്റവും മികച്ച സംഭാവന നൽകുന്ന ഒരു യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയായി ഇന്ന് രൂപാന്തരപ്പെട്ടുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. നമ്മുടേതായ സാംസ്കാരികമായ പൈതൃകം, നമ്മുടെ ഭാഷയുടെ ഔന്നത്യം നമ്മൾ ചൂണ്ടിക്കാണിക്കുമ്പോൾ തീർച്ചയായും കേരളം ഇനിയും വളരെ ദൂരം മുമ്പോട്ട് പോകേണ്ടതായിട്ടുണ്ട്. മലയാള ഭാഷ ഇന്ന് ശ്രേഷ്ഠ ഭാഷയായി അംഗീകരിക്കപ്പെട്ടു. മലയാളം ഭാഷയുടെ വികാസ പരിണാമങ്ങൾക്ക് വേണ്ടി പഠിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടിയുള്ള സ്ഥാപിതമായ മലയാളം യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി, മലയാളം ഇന്ന് ഒന്നാം ഭാഷയായി മാറിയ സാഹചര്യം, മലയാള ഭാഷയെ സംബന്ധിച്ചിടത്തോളം കഴിഞ്ഞ 4 കൊല്ലങ്ങളുണ്ടായ മാറ്റങ്ങൾ വളരെയേറെ ശ്രദ്ധേയമാണ്. നമ്മുടെ ഭാഷ നമ്മുടെ വലിയ സമ്പത്താണ്. മലയാള ഭാഷയുടെ ശ്രേഷ്ഠ ഭാഷാ പദവി കുറേയൊക്കെ വിവാദമായ ഒരു കാര്യമാണ്. കാരണം ഇന്ത്യയിൽ തമിഴിനും തെലുങ്കിനും കന്നഡയ്ക്കും സംസ്കൃതത്തിനും 4 ഭാഷകൾക്ക് ശ്രേഷ്ഠ ഭാഷ പദവി കൊടുത്ത അവസരത്തിലാണ് കേരളം മലയാളത്തിൻ്റെ ആവശ്യം മുന്നോട്ട് വച്ചത്. അന്ന് കേന്ദ്ര സാഹിത്യ അക്കാദമിയുടെ ഉപസമിതി പറഞ്ഞത് മലയാള ഭാഷയ്ക്ക് വേണ്ടത്ര പാരമ്പര്യമില്ല, മലയാള ഭാഷ ശ്രേഷ്ഠ ഭാഷയായി പരിഗണിക്കപ്പെടാൻ അർഹതയില്ലെന്ന വിലയിരുത്തലിലാണ് അന്ന് കേന്ദ്ര സാഹിത്യ അക്കാദമി എത്തിച്ചേർന്നത്. ആ വാദങ്ങളിലേക്ക് എത്തിച്ചേരുമ്പോൾ അവരൊരിക്കലും കേരളത്തിൻ്റെ വാദം കേൾക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി താല്പര്യം കാണിച്ചിരുന്നില്ല. പക്ഷെ പിന്നീട് മലയാളികളായ എഴുത്തുകാരുടെ കേരള ഗവൺമെന്റ് എല്ലാം ശക്തമായ സമ്മർദ്ദം കൊണ്ടാണ് കേരളത്തിന്റെ വാദമുഖങ്ങൾ ശ്രദ്ധിക്കാനും എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് കേരളം തമിഴിനെ പോലെ തെലുങ്കിനെ പോലെ കന്നഡയെ പോലെ ശ്രേഷ്ഠ ഭാഷ പദവി അവകാശപ്പെടുന്നുള്ള വാദം അവതരിപ്പിക്കാൻ അവസരം ലഭിച്ചു. അതിന്റെ ഫലമായി മലയാളം ഇന്ന് ശ്രേഷ്ഠ ഭാഷയായി മാറി. പിന്നീട് മലയാളത്തിന്റെ ചുവട് പിടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഒറിയ ഭാഷയും ശ്രേഷ്ഠ ഭാഷയായി അംഗീകരിക്കപ്പെട്ടിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഞാൻ ചൂണ്ടിക്കാണിക്കാനുള്ള കാരണം നമ്മുടെ ഭാഷയ്ക്ക് വലിയ ഒരു പൈതൃകമുണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ സാംസ്കാരികമായ തനിമ ഉയർത്തിപ്പിടിക്കുമ്പോൾ കേരളം ചൂണ്ടിക്കാണുന്ന പ്രത്യേകതകൾ അത് അവഗണിച്ചു പോകാൻ സാധിക്കുകയില്ല. തീർച്ചയായും ഇന്ന് ഈ എഴുത്തുകാരുടെ ഈ കൂട്ടായ്മ, ഈ സംഗമം, പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും നമ്മുടെ നോർത്ത് ഈസ്റ്റേൺ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളിലെ എഴുത്തുകാരെ കൂടുതലായി പങ്കെടുപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നടക്കുന്ന ഈ ആശയവിനിമയം നമ്മുടെ നാടിൻ്റെ ഐക്യവും ഭദ്രതയും അഖണ്ഡതയും വളരെയേറെ സഹായകമാകും. കാരണം പലപ്പോഴും നമ്മളെ വടക്കുകിഴക്കൻ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളെ മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നില്ല, അവരുടേതായ ആശയഗതികളെയും അവരുടെ വ്യത്യസ്തമായ ജീവിതക്രമങ്ങളെയും മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നില്ല. തീർച്ചയായും കേരളത്തിൽ നിന്ന് വളരെയേറെ അകലെ നിൽക്കുന്ന ആ വടക്കുകിഴക്കൻ സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളെ മനസ്സിലാക്കാൻ അവരുമായുള്ള ആശയവിനിമയത്തിലൂടെ, ഈ പരസ്പരമായ ഷെയറിങ്ങിലൂടെ നമ്മുടെ ഭാഷയും അവരുടെ ഭാഷയും സമ്പുഷ്ടമാകാൻ ഈ ക്യാമ്പ് സഹായകമാകാൻ എല്ലാവിധ ആശംസകൾ നേർന്നുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ അവസാനിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
വളരെയധികം തിരക്കിനിടയിലും ഇവിടെ വന്ന് നമ്മോട് സംവദിച്ച കെ സി ജോസഫ്, ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട സാംസ്കാരിക വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രിയോട് ശിവയുടെ നന്ദി അറിയിക്കുന്നു. Today's program, first program, will begin soon. And here on this stage, there will be a session on being heard in decibel hell, poetry in a noisy world, moderated by well-known poet India Subramaniam. And at the same time, there is another stage, Pamba, where we will have very established poet, critic, and fiction writer Kalpita Narayan's reading, talk, and interaction with him. So, be here, be seated, and took active participation in the discussion and debate. Thank you.
Panel discussion, the topic, being heard in decibel hell, poetry in a noisy world. Moderator, Arundhati Subramaniam. Panelist, Robin S. Gangong, Hemant Divate, Savitri Rajivan. Arundhati Subramaniam. Arundhati Subramaniam is a poet and prose writer who has worked as cultural critic, poetry editor and curator. She is the winner of the inaugural Krishnan Singh Memorial Prize for Poetry, the Rasa Award and International Award. She is the author of 4 works of poetry, 2 works of prose, and an editor of several anthologies on poetry and spirituality. Her most recent book of poems, When God is a Traveler, was shortlisted for T.S. Eliot Prize. As prose writer, she is the author of The Book of Buddha and the biography of contemporary mystic Sadhguru More Than a Life. As editor, her anthologies include Pilgrim's India, a Penguin book on sacred journeys. She co-edited Confronting Love, a book of Indian love poems. Another Country, a Sahitya Academy anthology of contemporary Indian poetry in English. And most recently, Eating God, a book of Bhakti poetry. Welcome, ma'am, to this session. Hemant Divate is a poet, translator, editor, and publisher of avant-garde poetry. He has 3 well-acclaimed collections of poems in Marathi. His works have been translated into French, Spanish, German, Irish, Urdu, Arabic, Hindustani, Gujarati, Bengali, Hindu, and many other languages. He has presented his poetry in many national, international poetry and international festivals in Europe, Latin America, and Asia as well. Divate is also the winner of Bharatiya Bhasha Parishad Award, the Maharashtra Foundation Award, and the Aksharang Lokmat Award. Welcome to the session. Robin S. Gangong is a bilingual poet who writes in English and Manipuri, a lyric poet and translator of long standing. He is a significant presence in literature of northeastern India. Since the publication of his first volume of verse in 1988, he has proceeded to consolidate his literary reputation with a poetry collection in every subsequent decade. Welcome to the session. Savitri Rajivan. Savitri Rajivan is a well-known poet and short story writer. Her poems have been widely translated into Indian and foreign languages and included in several anthologies like the Oxford Anthology of Modern Indian Poetry and the Penguin New Writing in India. She has published 4 collections of poems in addition to a collection of short stories named Sanjaride Thanu Poyavida in 2009. She is the recipient of Kunju Pilla Smaraka Award, Udaya Bharati National Award for Poetry, and the first Kamala Surya Award instituted by Kamala Surya Trust. I welcome all the panelists and the moderator to the session. I request everyone to be onto the dais, please.
Hello.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Can I be heard? No. Is this better?
Take this.
Is this better? Yeah? Okay. Welcome to the very first session of today. It's a session, as you know, entitled Being Heard in Decibel Hell, Poetry in a Noisy World. And it's a title that I actually came up with in conversation with Kanaka when we were discussing this particular conference. And I told her at the time that I would like to ideally moderate it, simply because it's an area of personal preoccupation. As a practicing poet, a question that frequently occurs to me is the question of audibility. Are we heard? And so perhaps it's appropriate that we started with a mic that wasn't loud enough. Are we heard is really a question that each of us grapples with in our own way. And Robin was just asking me yesterday whether this was going to turn into a defense of poetry, that kind of session. And I told him it needn't. What I was personally interested in is actually hearing from each of these fellow poets what their ideas are of the challenges that they confront today, how they negotiate them, how they make sense of their roles as practicing poets in the world that we inhabit. Just to set the context, I think almost every artist is familiar with the idea of finding her voice or his voice. We spend a great deal of our time going through periods of conscious or unconscious apprenticeship, where we imbibe from other voices that we admire. We imbibe, we internalize, we weed out, we discard. We go through this process for a long while, and suddenly, well, perhaps not always suddenly, sometimes gradually, a voice begins to emerge with a distinctive timbre, a voice that we can call our own. This process of finding one's voice, which is an ongoing journey, it never quite ends, ought to actually move seamlessly into the other part of the picture, which is being heard, finding your audience, speaking to your tribe. But often there is a schism, a barrier, a gash between these two aspects, finding your voice and finding your listener. So that's really what we're going to talk about. And we're not going to arrive at conclusions, we are just reflecting, thinking aloud. The job of the poet has never been easy, so we're not claiming that our lives are more difficult than our precursors. But I do think that we are all aware of a singular set of challenges. We live in noisy times and in a particular way today. Noise on many levels. There's the noise of the physical world. There's the noise of the news at 9, with some news anchors particularly adding to the din. There's the media, there's the social media, there's publishers with their own ideas of what constitutes a saleable book. There's lit fests that has suddenly made some poets feel glamorous, which is also an uneasy situation. So we're actually talking about a world with sometimes very narrowly utilitarian ideas of what constitutes relevance. What does it mean for each of us practicing in Marathi, in English and Manipuri, in English and in Malayalam? What does it mean for each of us to inhabit this context? I'm going to just start by asking each of my fellow panelists just to share what they would like to, very briefly, about their journeys of growing into themselves as poets. And after that, gradually, we'll move into talking about the challenges.
Okay. Thank you, Arun. I hope you don't mind if I refer to poems and some jottings, because I've always been a slow thinker and a slow learner, and I just like to begin by saying that this is referring to the topic of this panel, that I am not overly concerned about the fate of poetry, despite doomsday critics of poetry, despite Adorno's pronouncement. I believe in what Keats said about the poetry of the earth never, going to die. So does poetry have to shout to make itself heard above the din? I don't know. But if the decibels of hell is a reality we cannot ignore, poetry will absorb that reality and even write about it. Lorca wrote a wonderful poem about the hell of New York. I only feel that if poetry starts functioning consciously and starts competing with other genres or fights for attention, it will lose its spontaneity and ward off the muse. Darwis has one of the best poems about environmental damage, titled "Earth is Slowly Squeezing Us," where he asks where birds will fly after the last sky. Guyen has a poem titled "Can You?" He asks some questions to a friend, and this poem may be in anticipation of the corporate reality that we are familiar with now. So he asked his friend if his friend can sell a piece of the blue sky. I personally believe in silent verse. I'm not a fan of performance poetry. I feel there are too many calories in it. Calories in it. So I feel that poetry need not climb on a stage. what I mean to say is, I think a poem that is read in the silence of deathly nights will always live on in hearts and minds. I will talk a little about my own journey later. So if thank you.
I will come back particularly to a poem in which you talk about whether it's possible to talk about cherry blossoms or some such thing. Am I right? Is there a song? Is there a poem like that? We'll come back to that. And but for now, I will move on to Hemant. Yeah.
I am at ease with the noise around me because I live in Bombay. I am at ease with all Arnab Goswamis and then Rajdeep Sardesais. I am at ease with all the people barking and doing so many things around me. But I get a peace actually, sometime. That's because of poetry. Not my own poetry writing only, but reading poetry from all different languages translated in English, Hindi and Marathi. When actually the process of globalization started in 1990s, it started with the hail of a noise. But it is not going to end soon. It also actually added another dimension actually to our life. I often write about my life, about our life in globalization. And the globalization, I don't think that it's noise, but it's noise because we were not used to it. What I'll do actually, I'll read one poem, a small poem, and I'll try to explain maybe the kind of noise we are going through and how I am treating it. It's a long poem, but I'm not going to read the whole part. Actually, this poem sounds very good in Marathi, but I don't have Marathi now, and I thought nobody will understand it here. So, there are these 3 poems for Pedro uncle. Look, the Naddi holding up the chaddi of religion. I hope that you understand these colloquial words. Look, the Naddi holding up the chaddi of religion has now slipped from the God's hands. And whatever religion remains is left in an elastic chaddi filled with darkness infinite. Now you too refashion religion to your size and to your father's strait. Religion, you alone exist both on this side and that of birth and death, 10 pegged all over this earth, and even if I move an inch, you will give the order to fire. This leaves me scared shitless. What did you gain unleashing this reign of terror? Actually, the bigger noise is not of anything else, but it's of religion today. And the religion is of no use to us at all. I think actually we don't need religion. We might need our languages to, to not only to express, but to express maybe the identities of ours. And I think the religion and religious feeling, that is making more noise. And I am very annoyed actually with all this. I will call it shit. Thank you.
Thank you, Hemant. Later on in the session, we'll also hear Robin reading from his work, and Savitri. It's interesting to just tune into very different sensibilities, which you may already have cottoned onto. There is a very muted, deliberately muted voice on the one hand that's comfortable with the deathly silence of night. And there is another that seems to actually relish the adrenaline rush of the city. And that's the kind of context in which Hemant Divte's poetry fashions itself. Savitri.
Thank you. Like Arundhati Subramanian said, I too want to reflect what I think about writing as a person who writes poetry. It's like when I heard that being heard in a decibel hell, writing poetry in a noisy world, I was just confused that this same title, this same feeling, I was always having it. I know how to explain all those struggles I am going through. I was just thinking about that, and here I get a chance to say something about writing, how I write, what I feel when I write poetry, things like that. I just read out what I am thinking about poetry. Why does one write? Why does one write? For that matter, why does one engage in creative activities? Whenever I feel like writing or painting, I ask myself, why I should ever do it? I know that a person like me, who has not taken one's creative activity as a profession or a thing of entertainment, needs to face that question as a challenge, especially when I believe that I live in a space and a time of literary diarrhea. I do agree that everyone gets the urge to make his or her voice heard, and each one certainly has the right to do so as well. And that might be the simplest explanation as to why one follows their creative pursuits. But to be honest, writing goes beyond one's own satisfaction. It truly involves a commitment beyond oneself. Being creative allows me to go beyond the ephemeral world I live in, to create a space which has a life of its own, which in turn interact with the world in and around the autonomous world created. So I follow my inner voices, a deeply political and disturbed self, as if caught up in the Jumanji game movie. I am not sure if you have heard about that movie, Jumanji. Yeah, yes. Like in the movie, the chaos never ends, and no escape from the time and space I already entered, since I lost the clue word formation that leads to the normal world. So for me, writing is a process that involves a sort of craving to invent, create a brand new world, just like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to say that certainly for me, I was telling someone this yesterday. You know, we talk a great deal about poetry almost as if it is the pastime of those who don't want to connect with an outside world, as if it's some kind of solitary, solipsistic activity that has no relationship with the reader. And yet the fact is, and I know that I speak for myself and perhaps for many others, I know certainly for some others, that every poet, when she or he writes, certainly presupposes a reader. Certainly presupposes a reader. It may not be each one of us, but it is the ideal reader in her or his estimation at that time. So we are not really writing in a vacuum. We certainly write in order to be heard. But the question is, how does one straddle this world where you have to be true to your own creative imperative, and you also want to be responsive, you also want to be able to connect with that ideal reader. That's the ongoing journey, really. And there were several questions that came up for me as I heard each of them speak, but I was reluctant to interrupt. What I would like to just start by asking Robin is, one thing I think many of us are aware of is the fact that in the Northeast, in particular, there has been a very strong, active, continuous tradition of poetry. In fact, many of the literators we meet from the Northeast happen to be poets, not fiction writers, whereas in many other literary contexts in this country, the novel reigns supreme. So poets are very used to feeling marginal and besieged. It was when I first visited Shillong that I realized what a very different ethos they are heir to. So what exactly do you think is responsible for that? And has that changed in any way, or does it remain more or less the same?
I think there will be many reasons for that. In Dhruva's panel yesterday, and Rabaidu also said about the Northeast being a veritable melting pot of cultures, and so it is difficult, of course, to conceptualize a region, a geographical region, a specific geographical region, and in terms of history, politics, and geography. But there's a lot of variety there, in our poetry. And violence, as Dhruva and all mentioned, Rabbi Dose mentioned, is just one aspect of it. So I think, having read a bit of Northeast poetry in English, I think that it is possible to identify shared characteristics. So there would be a preponderance of, an overarching presence of nature, which is connected to the mythic world, which is a reality. The mythic world still exists in remote mountain villages. It's a Mamang Dai, for example, talks about ritual storytelling in her village, where you have the village healer, the shaman, telling stories about his tribe, and the storytelling would go on for 2 or 3 nights continuously, and everyone has to be there, so that the mythic world still exists. So that is one reality. And violence, of course, violence, the agonizing political situation of the Northeast demands that writers respond to that kind of violence. And
why is it that the response is so often in poetry and not as much in fiction? What accounts for the dominance of poetry, do you think?
I think, and speaking for myself, I cannot. It is my subjective reality. It is my subjective reality, and I cannot, shut my eyes, close my ears to the things that are happening around me. But to take, for instance, Mamang Dai, she's been writing about the stories of her own people, the creation myths of her people, and about the rivers and trees, which are in distinction from the modernist poets. Nature is not just an alien, impersonal presence in our poetry. trees, rivers, hills, they're all living things. So you would find this preponderance of images, stories from that world. This is one thing I like to mention, that many of the poets from the Northeast, they have not been culturally uprooted. They have not been deracinated. And there is a bit of ethnopoetics also. For example, Kanfarm. Kanfarm talks about a Kasi tradition called the Pawar, which is essentially performance poetry with a lot of wit and humor. Wit and humor is his strength, as you must have noticed. So we are not culturally, many of us have not been culturally uprooted. So there's a lot of variety, there's a lot of vibrancy in our poetry.
Yes. Hemant? Okay. We were planning to move on to challenges, but I think several of them have already talked about what each of them sees as challenges. But is there something you'd like, for you it has always been, as far as you're concerned, the certainty of religion, the verities of fundamentalism, that, as you see it, is really the challenge that the poet has to contend with today. Would you say that?
Yes, of course, actually. Because many people are scared, to express what they really want to express in poetry and in prose or wherever. So I think we are going through a very, very bad phase of politics now. And maybe in future we will have to apply to government to, I want to write a poem or something. You have to apply to a government, and then the government will give you sanction. Okay, you can write about this, write about this. I mean, we are going towards that or something. That's the fear basically, and that kind of world is not livable. That's actually, I get agitated actually to talk about it also. And I have gone through this kind of episodes, and so I know. But what I do is I write, and if there is very difficult, it's very difficult to publish it, then I keep it with me, revisit it, rewrite it. I don't publish. But the time is not good for the real poetry. And secondly, the other thing is, like there is one line in my poem that Vajpayee is also poet. Then Kalam is a poet, Vajpayee is a poet, and I am also a poet. So I am actually, the meaning is basically that the real poets are not given importance in this kind of superficial society. And the celebrities are, this is the time for celebrities, not for true art lovers and true creators rather. So that's also a kind of a very bizarre and very bad situation. So I think you can take it further. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we'll come to you, Savitri. I just wanted to say that I was waiting for this to emerge because it invariably does at some point or the other. On the one hand, there is this actual fear because we live in a context where everyone has the right to take offense and everyone seems inclined to do it every moment. But on the other hand, there is also, and this is the paradox, there is also the absolute inconsequentiality of poetry in popular perception. There's also the fact that poetry is trivialized so hugely that in fact a whole lot of names have to be mentioned in the same breath, and it takes a long time to be able to communicate to the person who's often discussing this with you. It takes a long time to communicate what poetry is and what is masquerading as poetry. So I must just say, just to add to this discussion more personally, that for me, the challenge as I see it, and I relate it to what Savitri said, there are so many kinds of noise that it took me a long time to realize that there are two ways to deal with noise. One way is to raise your voice, to thump a table, and to get shrill, which is valid, and I've done that in a poem or two. But there is also another way, and that is the choice to drop your voice, to murmur, keeping the faith that you will still be heard. I think this is the faith that many of us as poets try to hang on to. It's a tenuous faith. It's a very fragile faith, because each of us will say that it's almost a faith that is tested on a daily basis. There are times you can feel so completely peripheral. You can feel so much at the mercy of what Savitri called literary diarrhea, that you wonder whether there is room for the murmured voice. I personally relate to performance poetry. I've been to slam poetry sessions and I've enjoyed it. But it was also important for me to decide for myself personally that this was not my voice, and that I needed to carve a space for my voice. I did not need to discredit something else in order to legitimize my own voice. But it is possible to have a varied scenario and to make sure that different kinds of voices get heard, and that we don't just live in a universe that tells us that only one kind of poetry is relevant. There must be room for multiple voices, multiple articulations. And in our own very different ways, I think that's what we are trying to move towards. Savitri, would you like to say a little more about this notion of personal challenges that you confront as a poet? Maybe expand on that idea of literary diarrhea.
I'm talking about the to follow one's own inner voice. Yeah, it has involved some challenge, because the world order, the real empirical real world order, is against all that deviations. So one has to be very cautious, or one has to be how to express oneself is to be just want to find out some devices, kind of device one. So for me, I am just I can't find out invent a device myself, but how to involve my means as a poet, I have to invent the alternative. Yeah. To make my poetic self survive. Still, as a believer of poetry, I think poetry will give that strength to struggle, inner struggle, to strengthen my inner poetic self. So that's the only thing I can do there. To alternative device, to find out an alternative to this verbal diarrhea or that noisy world, no? Where we are living in. Just. So maybe I can read a poetry. Yeah.
We will come to the reading very soon. I think we'll keep that for our last round so that we end on a note of poetry, which seems appropriate. I'm just going to tie up very quickly, but I wanted to say that I wanted to ask each of you very briefly how you respond to the present. There is a new image, shall I put it? I'll just share that image with you, which is the poet with a visiting card, the networker poet who suddenly become glamorous at festivals. And it's an image that makes me mildly uncomfortable. I'm sharing this very honestly because this is an intimate gathering. It's an image that makes me uncomfortable. That's not my idea of the way in which, that's not just not my idea of a poet. It's also something that disconcerts me because it seems so much at variance with the person who wrote a poem. So I'm just curious to know how each of you also deals with the noise of self-advertisement, which is very much the noise of our times. Those of us who cannot hire PR agents often engage in a fair amount of self-advertisement. How does one deal with that?
I think for me, after the rejection slips from from America, especially the journals in America piled up, I have come to the point that maybe publishing for publishing's sake, or even bringing out a book, or to be honest, attending festivals, doing the festival circuit does not really matter. And I don't mean to embarrass you, but when you introduced my poetry in the Poetry International web, that has meant more to me than getting my poems published in sundry journals. So what I'm trying to say is some kind of appreciation from fellow poets, poets that you admire, means much more to me than promoting your poetry.
Hello. I am on Facebook, on Twitter, but I am for the sake of promoting poetry. Basically,
I should just add, yes, that Hemant is not just here as a poet, he's also a publisher. Yeah?
So, I normally put, a lot of stuff about other poets' work, their books, their programs, and if you actually visit my page, you'll find that I am actually advertising about poetry, about publications. I normally share something if there is something very good going on, like when you ask for manuscript or something. I mean, there is this group, Indian Poetry Collective. They were asking for something, so I thought that I should share this. So I normally share this kind of things, and I promote Poetry Wala and Paper Wall, so that people will visit the site and people will buy the books. Because nowadays it's very difficult to go to bookstores and keep the books there, and it's a hell lot of a business. And I mean, it's not business at all. It's it's like there is no other way of advertising poetry. So I think Facebook has done that kind of, or social media has done good thing for us. Secondly, I am sure mostly people on Facebook, unknown poets, and you get to meet a lot of people like Robin. Sometimes, will write to me, how is you, and what happened to your book or something like that. That's good. But there are a lot of poets who actually use Facebook to publish their poetry, and mostly bad poetry, and that actually is killing the space. I mean, we need a pollution controller there also. Thank you.
I think Facebook has done marvelous work in terms of democratizing poetry and equalizing the situation, but there are times one wonders whether it standardizes. Because I recently got a Facebook post from someone who listed 20 poets that he or she considered to be the most significant, some of whom I hadn't heard of, but that's fine. It's interesting to discover new voices. what interested me was that every one of those 20 poets, many of them all of us do, each one of us is in fact world-renowned. So it's this part of it that can sometimes be amusing at the best of times. The fact that it seems to flatten a situation to the point when aesthetic criteria seem entirely obscured, which I think is something to be at least alert to, even while we celebrate Facebook. Would you like to say something about social media particularly, or do you want to read your poem? You want about your poem? Are you reading a poem? Okay. Yes, okay. We are going to then wind up the session, but if there is anyone in the audience who would like to, who has a burning question that they would like to share, I know there are young poets in the audience as well. If there is anyone who would like to ask a question, yes, please. Can we get a mic across to him? Here.
I'm not a poet. Good morning to you. I don't know anything about all this. I'm just an audience here. I find each poet, we have.
Can you just hold it this way?
We had Rabindranath Tagore, and the Kerala we had the poet Ullu, and their role when the freedom fight was on was marvelous. And it's known to everyone. I was not even born that time. So I think it's like Mr. Hemant said, it's not only in the media, face to face, mouth to mouth. Like we were in Delhi and we had a Sanghadana called Naam, and one person, and we all were together there. I mean, many people were there. So one boy means around 25 years old, one chap. I mean, everyone was asked on the spot, you make a poem. And you know from ITO, and that person belonged to Dilshad Garden. When ITO, you go to Dilshad Garden, one has to cross Yamuna. And Yamuna smells almost 10 months. Yamuna smells. And that person just stood there and he made a poem of around 4 or 5 chansa on the spot. So this sort of poem must be appreciated. But that poem went away and no one noticed that. Like this, many, I mean, around 60% of the population must be poets here. And I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. It's amazing how many people, almost everyone has written a poem at the age of 16. It's amazing how many, very few really continue to write poetry. But what's unfortunate is that the fact that everyone is a poet, but very few continue to be readers. Somewhere we've lost our readers. It's a pity. Yeah.
Muhammad Faiz wrote a poem that is, anymore, this silence is dangerous. Break it down with the voice of truth. Break it with a word of innocence. Or just cry that this world is going to end. It means in the time of these insurgencies, conflicts, chaos, everything, people want to register their own opinions, arguments, wherever they are not satisfied with the works of people or popular icons, celebrity poets, and so. In this context, accidentally or not, the virtual area, social networking, gave them opportunity to register.
Yes.
But here, we people talked about that, the activism is there. But let me quote the Slovenian thinker, Savage Zizek, coined this. There is no activism. In this area, virtual reality, we can only see the passivism. Inter-passivism is there. All people, poets are talking about their own things, self-advertisement, as you told. and everything is revolving their eye, my mind, this type of things. This is a big challenge before us, before the real literature.
Thank you. Thank you. If there is no one else, yes, the last question. Who doesn't want to read it out? She's got a question right now.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
When I read this topic, I had two questions. One was about the social media, and second one is about the technology.
I'm sorry?
Technology.
Yes.
As such. When we were kids, actually, when my parents were kids, they used to say we had a book in their hand. They used to read. But nowadays, when we see our cousins, our brothers and all, it's actually they have an iPad, and it's good. Technology has many advantages. They have e-books, etc. there, but they rarely use all these things. They are more interested in games and all those things. So, does technology has a positive effect more on poetry or a negative effect more on poetry?
I think, maybe would any of you like to respond to that? I don't think we need to demonize technology. I think that would be unfortunate. But the choice we always have a choice that we can exercise, isn't it? The point is, especially television, often leaves us with multiple channels but very few options. The point is to actually expand the range of options in one way or the other. There are many ways in which that can be done. I personally have often believed that the culprit is the way poetry is taught in schools. You know, on the one hand, a small iPad screen ought to be able to accommodate the entire poem pretty easily. It should be very easy for you to read it. And why is it then that we have lost so many people to fiction or to prose? I really believe that the culprit is the way poetry was taught in school, which actually killed our very, very natural enjoyment of patterned language, which is poetry. But I think we're going to open up too many questions, which is the only reason I'm not handing the mic over at this point. But if there is an absolutely burning question, just the question. Yes, please, just the question.
In fact, it's not a question, but I would like to just supplement to Hemant regarding the challenges of the voices of the poet. I'm concerned with the poets of the pre-independence period. We have one very famous poet in Khasi, Sosotham. From those days, he had voiced regarding influx, in our land. And then during his time where he lived, nobody recognizes his poems, his voices. But then after he's no more, now everyone, every social activist, every civil society will try to quote from his poems, saying that whatever he had said 50 years ago or 150 years ago, it's still going on, it's still prevalent. So the challenges that we face, I feel, it's not that we fear, because another, the non-Khasi poet, but writing in Khasi, because he could not say exactly that the British East India Company or the Britishers, being the rulers at that point of time, will take action of what he is writing. But, he had uses the kind of images, not pointing the exact person or the exact, dominal power for that matter. But then the voices are heard by the people after they are no more. This I want to just share my experience.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to that? Robin agrees. It's certainly true. I mean, a poet in question in English, for instance, is Arun Kolatkar, whose work has sold tremendously after his death. And one is, of course, there are cultures of myth-making at work, but it's unfortunate that we have to wait for dead poets to happen before we start reading them, absolutely, or taking them seriously. Yeah. I know Dilip has a question. It's a somewhat long question, but Dilip, if you're going to be able to condense this to a single line, you're permitted to ask it. Would you be able to?
It's
a very long question.
In fact, I was trying to avoid the violence of my voice, but I failed. So it was about the creative expressions being an attempt to confront the voidness in our life experience. So does it signify or point to the richness of life as against various expressions? It is not the richness of, which is not exhausted by the expression. So this silences, this voidness within us, does it point to the life itself as being more expressive and more creative than our endeavors?
That is a profound question, and I'm going to pass the mic to Savitri. No? No, to what he said. Anyone, would you like to say?
I think he said something about fears. Yeah. I feel that, fear, for example, makes me human, makes me a poet. So, of course, poetry comes in all shapes and sizes, and with some poets, maybe they feel that they must be in control, they should not show their weaknesses, their fears, their flaws. But I agree entirely with what Arundhati said, that we should not also demonize technology for instance, I think Pound, experimented with the fruits of technology in that movement that he was briefly part of, vorticism. So what I'm trying to say is that I agree with what was it Ionesco who said that it is the human condition which directs the social condition, not vice versa. In other words, I feel that during these, we're talking about the decibels of hell, we're talking about pessimistic times, but perhaps the responsibility of the poet is much more modest than what well-meaning people would like him to shoulder. That is to change the world into a better place through his efforts. I only feel that perhaps poetry, if we're going to attach a function to poetry, I feel that a meaningful poem should move us. That's all. Maybe it should change us in such a manner that we remain no longer the same after we have read a meaningful poem. So that's all I feel.
I think that's very well put. But Dilip has vanished, but I just wanted, in fact, to say to him that for me, more recently, and it's been a fairly long journey as a poet to even realize the extent to which what you called, I think, the void, but certainly what I would consider to be pauses in a poem, the extent to which the gaps, the craters, the holes in a poem are actually the source of its life energy, in a way. So it took me a long time to realize that poetry is, in fact, the only verbal art that I know that embraces pauses very consciously. And if you don't, you're perhaps tripped up by them in some way. What those gaps mean and what those silences mean, I don't want to get mystical about it, but they certainly mean. Okay, I think we're running short of time and I have a flight to catch. So I'm going to... Whose poem? Hemant will read. Each of us will read a very, very short poem, and we'll conclude the session so that we leave with the sound of poetry.
It's raining here.
Actually, she was talking about the gaps or the gaps between the words. So there is a poem, the fresh, juicy meat of a poem. A moment from life is stuck between the teeth of a poem. A moment from life is stuck between the teeth of a poem. It lingers in the interstices like scraps of meat left over after shaving on a chicken lollipop, no different from the space between two words filled with the fresh, juicy meat of a poem. Thank you.
I'd like to read a poem which has, I feel, many decibels in it. I usually don't write, this kind of poetry. I write quietist poetry. But this poem is titled Curses. Mitra Baidu and Dhruva and friends who have heard this poem before will bear with me. I think I have earned quite a few curses with justifiable reasons in my life, and I want to curse these people back in return. Yeah. So this is titled Curses. When the world had its satisfaction, after men and women cursed me, I wished these misfortunes upon some in return. Realizing they cannot be called back, think of the malediction of a God calamity by merely being villainous. Think of sputum flung from a tongue. I name you first, savior of my homeland and murderer of women and children. May the acrid fumes of gunpowder and decomposing corpses never leave your nose. You who lace our vegetables and fish with poison, may your intestines screech when corroded by acidic juices. And you who make and sell spurious drugs, may you lie on your back with matted hair till the end of days, with a plastered leg suspended with weights. As for you, physician who collect from human pain, may uncontrollable tremors strike your hand and neck whenever you write a prescription. O clique of electricians who deny us light, may you wake screaming from a nightmare in the pitch dark of deep space and cannot tell whether you're in earth or hell. And your cousins who engineer cavities year after year on the roads, may each of their family jewels be pinched on the potholed ride to hell. And you, homegrown politician, pathological liar, may you develop a lisp and your children despise you when you begin uttering your first truth. My scheming poet friend, who stabbed me from behind with fine print, may you write in all the genres like a man possessed with verbal flux, but only earn dubious fame from sycophants. And as for you, treacherous woman, before the eyes of your younger lover, may your vain breast suddenly sag like a hag's. May your pubic curls be transplanted right below your nose, and thighs lock for hours.
That is such a vicious poem. It's difficult to believe that Robin is capable of such brutality. But We were talking about very varied voices. You've already heard two, and here's the third.
What I am trying to say that writing poetry is not for me and not a simple exercise of engaging with words or sort of subjective romantic wordplay. The whole world out there tries to entertain us with its technology improved devices ceaselessly and mesmerizing intensely. So here, as I said earlier, still a believer of poetry and its sublimity, I struggle to do justice to my untamed alter's self, inventing for her yet another space or time and walking away from the confined frames, as in one of my poems, The Dog. So I just want to read that poem, The Dog. Yeah, I can read it in Malayalam.
Should we just read it in Malayalam? What do you say? Would you like it to hear it in English or in Malayalam? Both? It's a long poem. Malayalam, English, speak in one voice. Malayalam.
കവിതയുടെ പേര് നായ. ഈ കവിത KCS പണിക്കരുടെ നായ എന്ന പെയിൻറ്റിങ്ങും കൂടെ റെഫർ ചെയ്ത് ആലോചിച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ കുറച്ചും കൂടെ അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് കുറച്ചും കൂടെ നന്നായിട്ട് കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുമെന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു. നായ. ഉടലിനോളം നീളമുള്ള മെലിഞ്ഞ വാലുള്ള ആ നായ എൻ്റെ വീടിൻ്റെ പടി കയറി വന്നു, 4 കാലിൽ തന്നെ. കുറഞ്ഞ ദേഹം, കനം കുറഞ്ഞ കരിങ്കറുപ്പു രോമം. അവൻ ഒറ്റ നോട്ടത്തിൽ കരിപിടിച്ച ചെമ്മരിയാടിനെ പോലെ തോന്നിച്ചു എന്നോ, അവൻ ജട കൊഴിഞ്ഞ ഒരു സിംഹത്തെ പോലെയെന്നോ, ബുദ്ധി കുറഞ്ഞ ഒരു കുറുക്കനെ ഓർമ്മിപ്പിച്ചു എന്നോ പറയുന്നില്ല. ആ നായ ഒരു നായയെപ്പോലെ ഇരുന്നു. മനുഷ്യന് മനുഷ്യത്വം പോലെയാണോ നായ്ക്കൾക്ക് നായത്വം? മുറ്റത്ത് നിന്ന് വാൽ കാലുകൾക്കിടയിൽ തിരുകാൻ ഭാവിച്ചും ഉടൽ വളച്ചും അവൻ എന്നെ നോക്കുന്നു. അത് ഒരു സാധാരണ നോട്ടമല്ല. അത് എന്തോ തീരുമാനിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ, ആലോചിച്ചുറച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടോ? ഒരു കടി, ഒരു കുര, സ്നേഹപൂർവമുള്ള വാലാട്ടൽ. അവൻ്റെ നോട്ടത്തിൽ നിന്ന് വരുന്നത് എന്ത് തെളിയാത്ത വാക്കാണ്, എന്ത് അവ്യക്ത ഭാഷയാണ്. അവൻ്റെ മുഖത്തുണ്ട് തിളങ്ങുന്ന പളുങ്കു കണ്ണുകൾ, വീശാനാവാത്ത ചെറിയ കുറ്റിച്ചെവി. അവൻ്റെ നിൽപ്പോ അസാധാരണം. അവൻ ഒരേ സമയം മുൻപും പിൻപും മധ്യവും കാണിച്ചു. അവൻ്റെ പൃഷ്ഠഭാഗം എൻ്റെ മുഖത്തിനു നേരെ വെച്ചു, വൃഷണങ്ങൾ പ്രദർശിപ്പിച്ചു, ഒട്ടും നാണമില്ലാതെ. ഈ നായയ്ക്ക് നാണമില്ലേ എന്ന് ഞാൻ ചോദിക്കുമെന്ന് അവൻ പ്രതീക്ഷിച്ചു എന്നെനിക്ക് തോന്നി. അതാണ് അവൻ ഇടയ്ക്ക് ഒന്ന് മന്ദഹസിച്ചത്. എനിക്കറിയാം നിങ്ങൾ മലയാളികളെ എന്നാണോ ആ മന്ദഹാസത്തിൻ്റെ പൊരുൾ? അതോ ഞാൻ അവന് നേരെ ഒരു കോണകം നീട്ടുമെന്ന് അവൻ വിചാരിച്ചിരിക്കുമോ? പക്ഷേ ഈ നട്ടുച്ച നേരത്ത് അവൻ എന്തിനാണ് എൻ്റെ മുറ്റത്ത് വന്ന് നിൽക്കുന്നത്? ഒന്ന് കുരയ്ക്കുക പോലും ചെയ്യാതെ. എന്നെ സ്വർഗാരോഹണത്തിന് വിളിക്കാൻ വന്ന ധർമ്മദേവനാണോ അവൻ? അല്ല, അവൻ പറഞ്ഞു. ഞാൻ KCSൻ്റെ നായയാണ്. മ്യൂസിയം ആർട്ട് ഗാലറിയിൽ നിന്ന് വരുന്നു. വിസ്മയിച്ച് ഞാൻ ചോദിച്ചു, എവിടെ താങ്കളുടെ കൂടെയുള്ള ആ കാക്ക? നായ മുറ്റത്തെ മരക്കൊമ്പിലേക്ക് തലയുയർത്തി. കാക്ക നിലത്ത് വർന്നു വീണ് നായയ്ക്ക് മുമ്പിൽ മുൻകല്ലിൽ ഇരുന്നു, എൻ്റെ അക്ഷരങ്ങൾ കുത്തിപ്പറിച്ചുകൊണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ എന്താണ് ഈ സന്ദർശനോദ്ദേശമെന്ന് ഞാൻ ചോദിച്ചില്ല. പകരം ഫ്രെയിമിൽ നിന്നിറങ്ങി ഞാൻ നായയ്ക്കും കാക്കയ്ക്കും ഒപ്പം നടന്നിട്ടു നിന്നു. നന്ദി.
I'll just read a very short poem because I know we are running out of time. And it's a poem called Home, and it's the poem in your festival brochure. We've talked a great deal about belonging, and almost invariably at literary conferences we talk about rootedness and belonging. And I just wanted to share a poem that talks about the joy sometimes of not belonging. This is a poem called Home, and maybe it's because I live in a subcontinent that's always being reminded of its ancient heritage. There are times I've wanted a sense of belonging that doesn't seem weighed by the past. Home. Give me a home that isn't mine, where I can slip in and out of rooms without a trace, never worrying about the plumbing, the color of the curtains, the cacophony of books by the bedside. A home that I can wear lightly, where the rooms aren't clogged with yesterday's conversations, where the self doesn't bloat to fill in the crevices. A home like this body, so alien when I try to belong, so hospitable when I decide I'm just visiting. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here, and we'll move on now to the next session. Thank you, fellow panelists. Thank you very much.
We have a 5 minutes tea break. Please assemble back here